Listen, I guess before we start, we just should probably just send a disclaimer out there to everybody that this is not technically a car design podcast today. We're talking to a great friend of mine, Sam Edward Holland, who is a entrepreneur, product designer, watch designer, but automotive enthusiast nonetheless. And the two of us studied car design. We studied at Coventry together. We all shared the same modules for the first 3 years. And then in the fourth year, Sam specialized in product design. Went on to do a job. He started a job. Jesus, I can't fucking talk. It's nothing out of the ordinary. But Sam started out as a watch designer, working for a company that was designing watches for lots of different brands, like Diesel and Flytrap and.
It was the concessions and fashion brands essentially.
Very elegantly put by Sam there. And then him and one of his homeboys went off to start their own company called WT Author. So if you're not interested in any of that stuff on how to be open-minded and start a company and be fucking awesome, then, you can by all means tune in next week. But now that we've got the formal, boring shit out the way, Sam, sorry. Dude, it's been so fucking long since we've spoken properly. Like I think it was before the time in Sweden. We probably saw each other maybe in it was probably graduation, so which is 2009. So it is going on. It is like it's probably not far off 12 years. September would be 12 years, I think. When was the graduation? It was like towards the end of the year because Coventry didn't have enough money to do the graduation ceremony in the cathedral in the summer. Is that right?
I think the date was altered maybe 2 or 3 months after when it should have occurred.
Wow.
But I mean, a long time ago, and it goes fast.
It does go fast. You still look handsome as fuck though.
Thanks, mate. I've just had a haircut, especially for this podcast.
Very nice. I should probably have a haircut. My hair's out of control, but it's just, dude, it's so complicated to get haircuts at the moment. And like, honestly, like in Germany, it's like, they doing you a favor by cutting your hair, oh, sorry, I'm fully booked for the next 6 months. It's like, what are you? A fucking tattoo artist? Anyway, so I need to get my hair cut. Right,
it's very easy. It's so easy. We've got like where I live. It's like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, and it goes opticians, hairdressers, solicitors, opticians, hairdressers, solicitors, all the way down the high street. It's a lot easier for me. I don't know what it says about the area that I live in.
Well, I think every city centre in the UK to some degree is kind of like guilty of that. But that said, I like it's also a good. I mean, I don't know. It does suck the character out of some areas, but at the same time, there's a level of predictability which is convenient in this modern life that we live in. Fuck, Sam, I don't know really where to start. So I know, like, I remember you. So we obviously studied together, and then after that, you went to work for this company designing watches for various different brands. And I remember speaking to you during a period about the possibility of you and your friend getting out and starting your own thing. Let's start off with this at that point where you kind of made that decision and that transition into getting started.
So I was very fortunate. So I graduated from Coventry and pretty much fell into a job in Birmingham. And it wasn't very well paid. It was starting at the very bottom as a junior designer in a product design studio. And in that studio, we undertook all sorts of projects like watches, packaging, various other accessory products. And I was there for about just over 4 years, or maybe just shy of 4 years. It was around the 4-year mark. And at that point, I'd kind of accidentally fallen into the trap of limiting myself in terms of... There were two worries. I felt like I had a very limited portfolio if I wanted to progress, which I couldn't do in that environment that I found myself in. But at the same time, I had this desire to get out and do my own thing. And I don't know what that was brought on by, other than you see other people doing it and think, well, why can't I do that? Like, why can't I go out and do what this person's doing? And let's see where I can go with it. And that's essentially how it started. And the other fortunate thing is I'd met someone in exactly the same frame of mind. Like, we would have countless discussions for 3 or 4 months around the time we were thinking about leaving this company, and we were just wired identically. We were literally on the same path, and we were there. We basically gave each other the confidence to step away from the stability of a full-time job and say, okay, let's do this, and let's do this logically and in the correct manner without taking huge amounts of risk. Just lots and lots of small baby steps to see where we can go with it.
So what was the first start? What was the first step that you made in terms of getting started?
We registered a company. So the very first step that we allowed us to, give us this confidence that this thing was definitely going to happen was literally the formalization of a limited company. We were like, right, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly. And we've always said that. And it's to this day, we've said, if we're going to do something, it will always be done in the correct way. Everything from setting up a company all the way through to really cool creative stuff. We're always going to do this properly. And so we just needed that strive to say, okay, it's set up now. So then we've got 12 months of dormancy to essentially develop this brand, this product, work out how we want to introduce ourselves, how we're going to go about things. Because we basically needed to be very careful at the time, because we didn't want to make it look like a period conflict of interests, which it wasn't, because we're essentially starting our very own brand. It wasn't, we're going to chase this company here, we're going to chase that company that we've already worked for.
Yeah, it was creating a product versus a service.
From scratch. Yeah, we were extracting ourselves from this studio where we'd cut our teeth for the last 4 years. Jon's actually been in the industry a little longer than I have. And we thought, well, we want to do this ourselves, not just poach. We're not poaching customers. We're literally starting our own watch brand. And, that ruffled a lot of feathers, and a load of people didn't like it, but they couldn't do anything about it. This was our thing, and we wanted the world to see it. And we were sitting on this idea, and it just sort of happened in those 12 months. We were working our 9 to 5 roles, which we were expected to, and as soon as we were getting home, we were just working on this the development of this product. And we were doing crazy things like assembling prototypes on stairs, and the kitchen table cutting leather, and there's takeaway leaflets everywhere, and the whole house that we got the delivery of components at different parts of the year, and the house was just getting fuller and fuller and fuller of just stuff. And there was one day where this articulated lorry was just reversing down this cul-de-sac in Redditch, because at this point we haven't formalized premises, but we were buying stock ready for this launch. And this truck was delivering this huge pallet of like packaging, and we just had no idea where to put it. And it was just sat in his garden whilst we were just like literally finding areas around his house where we could just shove products. And that's literally how it started. And we have over time just taken the necessary steps to expand into larger spaces. And right now we're in a really comfortable environment that, fingers crossed, is going to do us for a while.
Were you guys living together at the time?
I was John's lodger for about 12 months.
Okay.
And it allowed us to work on the business whenever we wanted to. We were cycling. So this was when we lived in Redditch. So we were cycling to and from Stratford upon Avon, like when the weather was good, and it was awesome. We were both on our racing bikes, just
cycle to work scheme.
yeah, cycle to work scheme. Exactly. Getting back, doing a sort of like getting our exercise in, having these conversations whilst we're cycling, and then coming back and just getting to work till like midnight, and then doing the same again for about 12 months.
Fucking hell. So what did you do in terms of like raising money to buy your first initial stock? Was it just through savings?
Just through our savings.
And wow.
We were we were promised, and we can go into the details if you like, but we were from so many parties, the promise of funding, loans, and we were let down at every step. So literally at every step where we were thought, oh, it's fine, we can talk to this person that, we've got this formalized, and we were on this pitch, the proposal over here. Like we thought we were covered, and the more we were going into it, the more people were just like dropping out. Not necessarily dropping out, but the promises that were made just weren't lining up. I don't know if you want to give me an example, if you want me to give an example, but we were like, we essentially pitched to the business arm of our university. And it was so promising. And the idea that we wanted to make it a collaborative project that would promote both parties, as in, look what these guys have done. Like they've stepped away, they're doing really well, they've got this idea, they're killing it. In exchange for really valuable services,
bigging up the university.
Absolutely. And everything just kept falling through, because when it came to the signing on the dotted line, that promise and that offer just wasn't lined up with what was originally put in place. And that happened several times, not just with like formal pitches, but we approached family members, we approached several friends, and this was all down through conversation that we're having over the year, like previously, leading up to this launch. And we essentially realised that the only people we could count on were ourselves. So we had to literally, any sensible human being in that period would have put money on a deposit or a wedding. Do you know what I mean? Like just the stuff you do. And we decided a motor, mate. But we decided to start this business, and it was that combined with we launched the product on crowdfunding, and the amount of pre-orders that we obtained. Plus, we did a couple of shows to launch the product around Christmas.
Dude, before you get into the nuts and bolts of it, because I remember you said that there was a problem with Kickstarter initially, and you had to do something else in the end. We can talk about that in a second. But but something that I think is really fucking important to get into, and coming from somebody that's actually done it, don't you think it's fucking stupid that we that we teach essentially our kids or society in general, like, whoa, you're going to go and put money into starting a business? That's so outrageous, you know? Why don't you rather go and put that money into a depreciating asset? Like, don't you, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose. As long as you don't get yourself into stupid amounts of debt that you can't repay, you're going to lose money. But think about what you're going to fucking gain out of the lessons you will learn out of that process.
Yeah.
And the more people that I've spoken to that have actually done this sort of thing before, like they don't hit it out the park first time. And I think that for all intents and purposes, you guys got there fairly quickly. I know it wasn't a straight line, but I mean, a lot of people fail fucking hard, but eventually with perseverance, determination, and just, drive, they get there, and then they've built something that is like, it's invaluable, and then you can buy all the fucking toys and assets you want in perpetuity.
It's it takes a lot of motivation to take yourself out of that method of thinking. It's becoming more and more alien to people to take those risks when it rides and essentially you. We could have gone down a more traditional route in terms of getting funding and spending time pitching. But we wanted ultimately, this is another really important thing. Like with our business, we wanted control. Like we wanted ultimate control. The minute we start getting third parties as like directors or as like people that can call the shots, it's suddenly not. We realise it's suddenly not ours anymore, and we're nothing's perfect. We're still to this day constantly making mistakes, but you learn from them and you don't make them again. And it's just such an enjoyable, organic experience to see it getting better and better and better every year, and taking those moments to allow yourselves that pat on the back to say, you got there through perseverance, through drive and determination to mold this thing yourself. And like so many people, and we still do to this day, from like members of our family, who just think like, they must think we're nuts. Like, and that is just their way of thinking. And that's just, they're not used to this idea where the amount of tools and facilities and things you can get your hands on for free these days to promote and sell what you do, it's just so easily accessible. And once you learn how to do it, you're aware, and there's no excuse other than time. Ultimately, it's time to do it and learning. But yeah, like we still talk to people now who think like we're crazy, and they should be used to it by now. We've been doing it for like 10 years. They should be used to this by now.
Fuck. So did you have a moment where you kind of felt like, okay, fuck, we've got a shot at this? Like, because it's obviously there, as confident as you are in whatever it is that you're doing, and you must have been, in order to, number one, step away from the security of a job, but also essentially put your money into this. I mean, the notion of going and spending money at a supplier for parts and materials, you are actually going like, we have to sell this, we have to somehow make this work. Of course, I'm assuming there must have been a little bit of doubt as well, like naturally. Did you have a moment where you were like, fuck, I think it's going to happen?
This would have been, there wasn't a moment as in success. You're thinking like, okay, or
just going like, I think we're going to be able to, at least we're going to be able to pay our rent, we're going to be able to cover our costs, and we're going to be able to, like, well, I'm doing it, you know.
That
it's like,
moment That moment came at the very end of the project. As in, we built a critical path, a timeline of events that we wanted to hit, and at no point did we feel like, fuck, we're away now. Like, we didn't get that until literally like the days leading up to Christmas, when obviously we're marketing a specific product in that period. So that would have been December 2013, and we'd formalized the business in October 2012. So for those entire months, we were just literally hanging on, like literally seeing where this thing takes us, like literally hemorrhaging money, like tens of thousands of pounds being hemorrhaged, thinking, is this thing actually going to work? None of us knew how to design a website. None of us knew how to promote a product. We were just guessing. And every year, and it's been the same ever since. We take full control of the whole machine and get third parties involved as and when necessary, when it just oversteps our specialties now. But at that point, it was like, okay, we need a website. So who's going to do that? Oh, Sam, do you want to do that? Yeah, I'll do that. Oh, we need to build this thing over here. Who's going to do that? John, like, you're going to have to do it because I can't, because I'm building the website. Like, it's just all of this stuff. And we were just learning along the way. Like, I'd love to sit, I might go back on like Wayback Machine or whatever it is, and look at our very first website, because it must be a shit show. We just didn't know what we were doing.
Jesus, Sam.
Like, none, other than design and build watches. That was the two things we could do.
This moment that came just before Christmas, what did that look like? Was that like orders were starting to come through?
It was the finalizing of Kickstarter, because that was when products were being shipped. Like, we were shipping products from a local post office. So we would walk in with like 50 boxes at a time, with Deirdre behind the glass counter looking at us like, who are these guys? It's literally this tiny little like village post office. I mean, like, we need to get these shipped out to like literally every country in the world. So can you help us? And we were just sending them all like special delivery across the world. Like, we just hadn't lined up anything, because it was just full on all the time. We were doing every role. Any sensible business like ours today would have got like, shipping and courier delivery services in place. We were just like overwhelmed. It was never out of control, but we were just, whatever was the right way to do it for us at that time, we did. So we decided, right, these are all being sent out, tracked and traced, international, blah blah blah, from our local post office, because we've got no
So
option.
what sort of numbers are we talking about with regards to postage? Like, you've just said, like, you bowled into your local bookies. I mean, not your bookies, their local post office.
Put a few bets down. It was like putting a bet down. It was like putting a bet down, I guess.
You like, this is just like when I go down to William Hill. It feels exactly the same.
Yeah, a similar feeling.
So you bowl into the local post office with a few boxes. John does the same thing. Like, what sort of numbers are coming through initially to start off with at the end of the Kickstarter campaign?
Like, so we were selling, let's say we had it was about 30% of our stock had been sold at the end of the Kickstarter campaign. So we were essentially promising 500 pieces of a particular product, and we had sold around 30% of that stock by that Christmas.
So what would it have meant for you if you had sold all 500 straight off the bat?
Oh, it would have been insane. Like, but yeah, it would have been absolutely insane. We probably wouldn't have been able to, we would have to bring people in to deal with it, because we could only just deal with the capacity that we
30%.
were selling it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So
We'd have brought people in.
So Sam, essentially at that stage, you guys have built you guys have done tens, if not hundreds, of different prototypes with like SLS parts or SLA parts, whatever the case is, and just making stuff on your kitchen table. And then eventually you get a proof of concept, you create a Kickstarter campaign, and then you get a bunch of orders, and then you say, okay, cool, by such and such a time, the campaign's going to run for a certain period of time. And then at the end of that period, you've got an order for, say, 200 watches. And then you've just got the two of you guys work morning till night, just assembling and making everything. Is that how it worked?
That's how it works. So we were, the Kickstarter finished in September. And we knew that this was only the start of the whole promotion thing. And we were just like, okay, well, everything's got to like tick over to some sort of pre-order store on our website, which happened as soon as it finished. And the orders just kept coming. So at the beginning, I was like, oh God, I really hope that the website's up for, like, when are we going to get our first website order? And I still remember that feeling. Like, it's never left me, of getting that very first order through your own store. And I remember exactly where I was and where it was delivered to. I can't remember the individuals' names. I have to look through records. But it was just such a nice feeling to think, oh, it wasn't just reliant on the fact that we were being promoted on these crowdfunding platforms. It was just this nice feeling that we'd like generated enough press and enough of like a spark to transition that across to our own way of selling the product. And so we were still taking pre-orders from like the end of September. It would have been the middle of October, I think, all the way through to the middle of December. That were just adding on to the Kickstarter campaign, because people obviously needed to catch up with what we were doing. And yeah, it was just very, like I said, at this point we were running the brand through somebody's home, and we had tools set up, and we had it was essentially every room had another function. It's like, oh, this is the stock room, this is the it was all it was just mad. It was just mad. And then we progressed onto the areas we are now. But yeah, it was just ourselves, and it was a very like organic system that wasn't reliant on like intricate systems that could measure data and where it's going to go and how much shipping cost was going to be. It was literally like notes on bits of paper to lead to Jon to remind him to do this, and that's essentially how it started, because we were focusing so much on the product. Because we've both come from product design backgrounds, that we hadn't set up this infrastructure. There was no infrastructure.
There's a lot of discussion around that, and how important, on the one hand, the infrastructure is very important, but in the beginning, a lot could be said for the product's going to fucking sell itself at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, you've got to pick which option you want, really. I think by doing it our method, that you almost eventually become like masters of knowing how to do it, because you've seen what can happen when it goes very, very wrong, and you've implemented those changes to make it very, very right. And you eventually, when you do hand that over to somebody else, if they're not going to screw, if you haven't done it already yourself, it's very hard to work out whether like you're being screwed over, or even know what the hell you're talking about. Now, I don't admit to being like a expert in I don't know, social media advertising, for example. But if we were going to like talk to somebody about that specific aspect, I know if they're talking bullshit, because we've done it. I know the mistakes I've done. I know the good things I've done, and I've got enough of a understanding like terminology and trends to know if somebody's talking crap. And our inbox every day is just flooded with people that are just selling you snake oil, and it's like, just fuck off. Like, we just ignore, and it's like an endless stream of bullshit.
Yes.
And then you eventually do get into conversations with people who do know what they're talking about, and it always leads on to success, whether they're a filmmaker or whether they're specialists in a specific piece of software. It's like you soon find those people. They're difficult to find, but you get there.
Sam, in terms of infrastructure, you mentioned earlier on about things, you kind of correcting your course when things have gone very wrong. Can you give me an example of something that's gone really wrong in the past?
Yeah, like this was very, very recently. We're talking Christmas 2019, and it was scary. It was fucking scary. It was between 1st of December until end of January 2020. We were dealing with a situation whereby we were working with a lot of different suppliers, and a lot of individual parts were coming in fucked, like wrong. The specifications were incorrect. The actual design of a thing was incorrect. Like it was just one thing after another. So we thought, we could manage this, but then when those smaller things turn into this swarm of issues, it was just treated as this one big body of, well, we've got to unpick this somehow. And we went into 2 months of just damage control, knowing that as long as we recorded and archived and did things systematically and in a logical step-by-step, keeping our heads and working through these problems that we were having, we would get to where we needed to be. And I remember it was just 12-hour phone conversations with Jon, and he would be working in the workshop and I'd be working in a separate studio, and I was almost like remotely managing. He needed to be told what to physically do in the workshop because it was so overwhelming, and all I could do at that stage is I just act as almost like the cheerleader / strategist to sort all of this out. And we got there, and we got to the end of January, and we survived, and we were scared shitless by the whole process because the number of things that went wrong and did go wrong was just, I'd never want to go back there. And we immediately put things in place to make sure that never happened again. And I understand the past, however many months it's been now, 18 months or so, where we've all been, locked up. The past year that we've all had is almost insignificant to us to what we went through in those 2 months leading up to it. And I don't know whether that was because of the things that we put in place immediately after that happening, that has allowed us to absorb the punches over this last year or so. And so that's been a real benefit for sure. It hasn't been easy, but it's been a damn sight easier once we put things in place to make sure we never go back to those dark times, because they were really dark. They were just awful.
Dude, what is the kind of simple explanation of the role that the two of you guys assume? So your partner, Jon, sorry, we need to give him a shout out because we
do. Yeah,
shout out to Jon. What's Jon's surname?
John's surname is Shakespeare. Jon Shakespeare.
John, of course
So,
he is. Is he from
yeah.
Stratford?
He's from near Stratford.
Is he?
Apparently, they're looking into the relation to William right now, the family. And
Well, you never fucking know, dude. You never know.
There's a really long. There's an actual thread they're going down right now in their family tree to work out if it's a thing.
I'm sure he charmed many ladies back in the day. Old Bill.
Yeah. So yeah, he's the relationship that we have is he's very hands-on. Like he grew up taking apart Ford Escorts and putting it back together again. And I'm the more, I don't know, sits in front of a computer screen day in, day out, getting things done and sketching, drawing, designing. And he's definitely got the more like engineer head.
Mechanical mindset of...
Well, yeah, and also it was like the naivety of the product itself. So in that studio, I came from a very watch-heavy role, as in I was just drawing circles all day, every day, which is another reason why I left that role. It just became like a logo slapping exercise. And I've lost my thread a little bit.
Just the two roles of yours. So you said that he's a lot more mechanical, good with his hands, and you are more in front of a computer screen all day. Yeah.
Well, this is what made the product quite, and we continue to, because the products that we make are bespoke, other than the movement. So the movement, we use stock movements that are massively reliable, and we can service ourselves and replace and work out how they work and all that sort of thing. But we're not quite there, and I don't think any business in this country is quite there in terms of building their own movements. But we allow ourselves to design this product from scratch. Like there's no off-the-shelf parts to say, oh, we want a case that's that, we want that. It's all engineered to our own specifications. And I come from this mindset where like, oh, well, a watch is a watch. Like this is what a watch looks like, because I just had stupidly trained myself to think like that for 4 years. And Jon was like, well, it doesn't have to be like that. And so I acted on his ignorance to the whole industry to say, well, why didn't you do it like this? Why didn't you do this? Oh, this is an interesting watch from this decade. Why can't we do it like that? And it just made me question the things that I was doing with the design. So Jon's as much as the designer as I am. It's just I'm the one that's drawing it. He has equal say in the design when we are developing the product together. And it usually, his part usually introduces the original aspects to the product. Because it happens every time. I'll be like, oh, here's the new watch. And he'll be like, oh, it's a bit boring, right? And I'm like, oh. Like, okay, go on, tell me why. And we just go from there. I've allowed myself to kind of loosen up a bit over the years, but
did that take some getting used to?
What, hearing his criticism?
Yeah.
At the beginning, probably. I remember like when we were working on our second edition, and I was like really adamant that we needed to do something a certain way. And he's like, no, we're not quite ready for it. Like, do it like this instead. And I felt a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if he's right here. But he was right in hindsight. But we rarely fall out. And the fallings out will be so petty that within half an hour we'll be
resolved.
We're having a laugh again.
Wow.
But we've never had a falling out about in terms of the actual product itself. Like it's always been like you can literally say what you want to say about anything in this, and we can work on it, and we always get there. It's great. It's a really good feeling to sort of both be happy with a final product that we're going to be releasing to the world.
Yeah, you know, this is I've spoken not everybody has that, right, in a partnership, and that's why there's a common saying that I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something along the lines of the only ship that doesn't float is a partnership, or something like that. It's and basically alluding to the fact that partnerships don't work, and I think that's totally inaccurate. I think, yes, of course, there's everything to be said for one person having control over everything, but I also think that a lot of people don't necessarily have the right partnerships. And a very good friend of mine back in South Africa, he's got a very successful media company, and he and his partner, they also kind of started out together, and for a long time they were pretty shit. My little guy's just come in now. No, he's gone out. For a long time, it was a pretty shit partnership. Like there was a lot of tension. They had to go for counseling and everything. I know my image is just blown out now, but it will correct itself. It's just a shitty webcam. But I do have a DSLR that is making me look a lot better. So it will sort itself in a second. But I know that, like, he, for example, and I know a lot of people have to really work fucking hard at it. You know, you hear this all the time in bands as well. You know, there are bands that are built on, like a brotherhood first and foremost, that transcends any musical inadequacies. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where it's like, this is the best bass player, that guy's the fucking best drummer, and look at this guy's like frontman material. And then you put them all together, and you know they're miserable, you know, and then so it's cool that you've got that, you know, that's a gift.
Yeah, we're so lucky, and we talk about it a lot, and we've been through a lot together, personally, like business wise. We have to remind ourselves not to fall into the trap that we were first and foremost friends. Like, it gets tetchy and stressy at times, and one of us might, you know, not want to talk for a bit. Well, there's all sorts of dynamics that occur, but we remind ourselves that we were once just friends. There was none of this. There was none of this business that's so closely tied and treats everything so fairly. And I know ultimately I want to stay on this track because I can see the benefits, and I know what's coming. You know, when you just have that gut feeling of this is the right thing I should be doing. There is. And coupled with there being not even a doubt in my head to think, am I doing the right thing? Like, of course, that was there at the beginning. But after 10 years and realizing, oh, you know, haven't died yet. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It just makes me think I'm definitely, I'm sure he would say the same thing, that we're definitely on the right track, and we're onto something. Whether it's through the watches, whether it's through any other like interest that we have, we're always generating ideas. We're always thinking, you know, what is that? What is the thing we're trying to do? What are we? Let's like deconstruct it. Let's plan it in a logical way, and see what happens. We don't allow ourselves to not do the things we each individually want to do as well. There's no limitations. If you want to do something, you can do something. If you want to learn something, go ahead. Like, do it. I'm not going to stop you.
Sam, you guys are you guys are definitely I don't know how to say, not linked to the automotive industry, but it's kind of, there's an automotive spirit about your watches. Like, you guys also have in the past gone to various classic car shows and had stalls there, etc., etc. Can you explain to me, like, what is a WT author watch? Can you explain a little bit about the brand and the products?
We don't want it to just be a watch, and there's a lot of brands that use that as a tagline. We want to give individuals an original product that they have seen in development across a period and know the history behind a specific collection, whether that's as in the short-term history in its development, or whether it's the history attached to the inspiration on a particular collection. And we want to sort of introduce a personal touch to that, so we don't shy away from doing the shows like you've just mentioned. We know that we love doing that, as well as what's become standard now, the whole social media and website and blogging and newsletters, and that's obviously, but both are key, both are heavily, and this was after the last 12 months it's become very apparent that we need both of those worlds to succeed. We need to be out there in the real world talking to real life customers to buy our watches. We're not talking to people that could sell our watches on our behalf. We're selling these watches ourselves.
Direct to consumer.
The only stockist we have is the Imperial War Museum in Duxford, and it's incredible to have our name attached to the Imperial War Museum. And so we're more concerned about that sort of way of featuring our product than flogging these on QVC, or I don't know, flooding. Like we do the whole social media thing, but we don't flood people with advertisements.
Sam, No, carry on.
When we do want to introduce new ideas to people, we always think, well, how would we do it? Okay, it's all well and good that these 10 brands that do a similar thing they all do it like this. Why do we have to do it like that? Why do we have to drive around in an old car around the Scottish Highlands? Why do we have to, I don't know, have a celebrity in our video? So we essentially brought one out recently that just focused on the process. It was just, okay, we've got a workshop. What's in the workshop? It's all this cool shit. Let's film it. Let's put a story to it. Let's script it. Like we know what we do, and we try to make everybody else see what we do.
Yeah. I think like we are definitely. It's this very strange time because everybody is so obsessed with the perfect filter, the perfect selfie, the perfect image that they want to try and project to everybody else. And with that also comes a lot of realization that actually that is not the fucking way to go, because number one, I'm miserable, and number two, everybody's sick of that. So actually there's a yearning for real authenticity. So that sort of stuff that you guys are doing is really, really important. And I want to give a shout out to a guy. Fuck, I always forget his name. It'll come to me now. But they call his company's called Advanced Canvas, and they basically take like these Porsche sculptures and they kind of grow out of the canvas. They look fucking amazing. And I said to him as well, I was like, you guys need to be. Like, these images that you're producing are great, but it's like the product was so fucking good that people thought that they were all just like renders. And I was like, dude, you need to show like the casting process and the painting and you in your overalls and like all the grit shit. People love that, you know? Like that's definitely really important. Alex, I think is his fucking name. Alex Koch. I think whatever advanced canvas, but yeah, that's
about like that. That sounds amazing, and we by doing these shows, especially like these classic car shows. You know, at the beginning, a lot of people were like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Why is a watch brand here?" But as we return year on year, and we've just become like a staple at all these events. And you go around and you see all these amazing things, and you talk to really amazing people, and all of a sudden you get an idea. You think, "Okay, that guy can do that. We need to work with him because we need this doing."
Yeah,
and it turns into this like awesome like a family and network of people that you see, you know, once, twice a year at these events, and they all have their niche, and nobody's measuring each other, and you're all having these in-depth conversations about how they do a specific thing, and it's beautiful. Like absolutely, it's just awesome. There's this guy who does the most amazing automotive sculptures that are commissioned as one-offs, that he uses like 2D planes of like metal and wood.
Is that Johnny Ambrose?
Yeah, Johnny Ambrose. Yeah.
Okay.
And he attends. Last time we saw him was Silverstone Classic, like 2 years ago, and it's just people like that doing really gorgeous work that nobody else is doing and killing it, and we're having conversations with them, they're having conversations with us, and just exchanging ideas in terms of promotion, and every single show. Yeah, it's great.
Don't you think it's a fucking great time for that sort of thing? Like, if you take him specifically, like the fact that sort of thing is so feasible now compared to what it would have been 5 or 10 years ago. Look, there's always been a place for art, but the fact that you can be totally unknown and create a product, like if it's good enough, or if it's a piece of art that people really want, as you say, like there's all these free tools to kind of give exposure to that and to make something like that totally viable.
I think it just starts with this. What's going to make you unique? Like, we're constantly thinking of ideas, and it's just like, oh, you know, this person's done it already, or there's not going to be any sort of like need for it, or demand for a certain thing. But if you really, you know, sit down and just hash out ideas about what skills you do have in place, and think, well, how can I turn this on its head? Like, what can I introduce that's going to like move it on a step? What can I introduce? How can I use the skill I've got and add my personality into the mix?
Yeah.
And it always starts with just having, you know, the conversation and writing and sketching. Like, I personally, you know, I love sketching, but I will sit down with a notepad and just write, and just I like to list things. I like to almost like scientifically produce a method to do something, and get to the end and be like, okay, well, 2 + 2 = 4, so I'm going to do this. It's just the way that I think. But then I will try to bend as many of those rules in that equation as I can without overstepping the mark. A lot of people just like, you know, sketching until they reach that idea, and just talking. Like I said, like, you will like, there's been so many things that you've said in this conversation alone today that has made me think of things, and I'm sure it's been the same with you. Like, oh, like, okay, like, Sam's added that to the mix. Oh, Sam said this. It's just all about like going away and making sure you don't lose any of those like ideas that could have been something.
Sam, you know what's been really fucking interesting for me? It's not like, we spoke on the phone quite intensely about 3 years ago, I think. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. And if I remember, like, you at university, like when we were doing a project together, for example, you were always the guy that that like, it was like, okay, listen, like, we're in this project with Sam. He's fucking serious. He's got all his shit together, and like, you've got to kind of bring your A game. And of course, I fucking never did. But it was kind of like I was always kind of not intimidated, but I was like, I was really well aware that you were taking whatever we were doing very fucking seriously, and you were very methodical in all your processes and everything. And then when I spoke to you about 3 years ago, it was like you've got this machine that's kind of operating in the background, and yet there was this kind of relaxedness in your, like, I don't have it fucking figured all out, it's like, but we're kind of doing it, and we holding on for dear life sort of thing. I mean, I'm playing it down now, but it was not, it was really interesting for me to see that you were having all this immense success, but there was also an honesty in your kind of and a transparency in your attitude of like, there's a lot of things that I don't know what I'm fucking doing.
Well, I think like, if maybe we should touch on like education for a bit, because I reflect on how I was at university, and I think you were so fucking uptight. Like, loosen up. Like, so fucking anal about everything, and being like, it has to be like this, it has to be like that. And I wasn't ever given the chance to train myself out of that. I had to do that myself after university. And I'm not saying that the opportunity wasn't presented, but I don't understand why I could do it. I should have been able to do it more so at university than coming out of university and getting a job and doing X, Y, and Z. If you allow yourself like the risk, like the chance to go out and start doing your own thing, you very much have to like adapt to that, like quickly, like immediately. Okay, we're going to do it like this now. It needs to be done like this. How are we going to get there? And you soon realize that a lot of the stuff that you're used to doing, you can't do it like that anymore. And you're forced. It's literally like, if you don't do it like this, you're not going to survive.
Are you also alluding to the fact that like not letting perfection get in the way of productivity?
Yeah, like, what is it? Analysis by
paralysis by analysis. Yeah,
it's like a real issue, and it flares up with me all the time. And you just cannot get anywhere. And I think that's a lot of creatives feel like that. I've definitely become a lot more relaxed. I think the thing is, you have to put the boundaries in place, like time constraints, for example. Now it's gonna be I'll have a very structured way of how I organize my time, and I allow every now and again I allow myself levels of flexibility in order to get something completed. But within that, when the creative aspects start within a project that's been heavily constrained via certain rules and limitations that are outside of the creative, as in like, you have to reach this deadline, it has to be this cost, it has to be this and this. I've desperately tried to train my brain to, as soon as that bullshit's out the way and it's locked in place, then the creative side happens. Just fucking go for it, and don't strive for perfection every time. Don't try to please everybody. Just do what you think is right and see what comes up.
That's really fucking good advice, and it's articulated in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily said, and that's why it's all the more powerful. I think like there's a common misconception that when you say like don't strive for perfection every time, that you go that you half-assing things. Those are two different things. It's like yes, you should make sure that something is as good as it possibly can be, but don't get caught into paralysis by analysis. Where you've analyzed something to the nth degree, you've done 300 variations of it, and at the end, nothing comes out of it because you caught up in your fucking head of how something should be versus realizing what it is that you want to achieve. And that is fucking really, really good advice. And it doesn't get talked about enough,
No. I think it kind of like lends itself to the process as well. Like, it's almost like we like to justify and record and archive everything from like an idea to, a final product. And we're lucky in that because we're both, I'm talking about our business for a second, like we're both creative and we both do creative aspects within the business. It's very easy to document that on social media, like you were saying earlier about the stuff that isn't, it's just not glamorous, but it tells the story, and it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be justified through what we want to achieve and what our goals are and what is driving us to do it. Like, I don't care what bad things people have to say about our business, unless we've fucked up, whatever.
Yes.
If someone's got an opinion, they're entitled to that opinion. At the same time, I literally don't care. And it wasn't like that at the beginning, but the amount of criticism you get over the years, and it just grinds you down to this perfect little pebble that couldn't give a shit anymore.
But,
like,
dude, isn't that fucking liberating when you finally get to the stage where you just like, fuck it, like this is what I'm doing and I don't care, like I feel great, like it's weight lifting. So liberating, like to have the attitude of like, I literally don't give a flying fuck what you say. Not even a flying fuck.
Not even a flying fuck. I literally don't care. I don't have the time to care. Why should I care? Like, there's, for every one person, there are hundreds of people who think the complete opposite. And it's always that one little thing that will get in your head. And you're like, you forget the hundreds of positive comments, positive opinions.
Dude, I can't, but that is so fucking true. And you'll hear that all the time now, especially in the age of social media and having more access to what celebrities have to say and whatnot. It's like like your fucking heroes, like whether it be a musician or a sportsman or whatever the case is, they will tell you that it doesn't matter that there's 10,000 positive comments saying like, I love you, you're the fucking best person, like you're an inspiration to me, etc., etc. It's the one negative thing that you'll take to bed with you that night. And therefore, a lot of people, they go, I'm not going to fucking even read those things because it also works in the other way as well. It's like if you allow too much weight on somebody's positive comments on you, like if you give that too much value, you also make yourself make yourself vulnerable to the negative shit as well. So it's kind of like it's nice to hear nice things, but like be respectful, say thank you very much, I appreciate it, and just like don't pay too much attention to that either. Just keep focused on what it is that you are trying to do and do the best that you can do and do it consistently. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I don't know what else I can add to that. Other than it takes time to reach that place.
It's a process, isn't it?
Wobbling my table here, look at that earthquake. It's a process, yeah. I think that you definitely, touching on university again. And I can't remember taking criticism that well when I started out. But as soon as you are exposed outside of that environment and the idea that the client is always right. It's just it's a weird relationship, because you have to balance your own like personal opinion with the needs of others, and ultimately, you know, you do want to keep people happy. I'm not doing things to piss people off or doing my own thing because I think that I'm right all the time. It's nothing like that. It's just a happy coincidence that there's a load of people that think we're doing cool shit. Like, we think we're doing cool shit. Do you think we're doing cool shit? Yeah. Okay, cool. Like, brilliant. Thanks. Do you want to come along for the ride? We don't. At no point do I think that I'm right all the time. Like, we're being questioned daily, all the time, by all sorts of things, and that's always difficult to manage. Those two conflicting worlds, where you think you are right, but yeah.